that all down, let's get things started with this, shall we? It's been a hell of a year for Disney. Disney, now we are celebrating 2 years since Bob Chapek, Big Papa Iger came back. I miss Bob Chapek so much. Oh, that guy gave us new content to talk about every day. Well, it's been 2 years since Bob Iger came back. Literally this week is the 2-year anniversary. And, since the pandemic, Disney as a whole company, right, has been kind of a bit on shaky ground. But in just 2 years, Bob Iger's really turned the ship back around. Now, he's turned the ship around. He still hasn't gotten the ship to its final destination. Don't get me wrong, but they finally has got things turned around. As headlines like in Deadline, Disney touts a 2-year turnaround behind the studio's stellar quarter. If you go over to MarketWatch, Disney stocks surge as streaming profits grow and film releases shine. We'll go down to what they wrote over at MarketWatch. It said, the Walt Disney Company saw streaming profits grow in the last quarter, underscoring progress on the company's efforts to transform direct-to-consumer distribution, recently a loss-maker endeavor, into a financial engine. That was one highlight in the media and entertainment giant's fiscal fourth quarter report, which has shares rallying nearly 9% on Thursday morning action. Disney chief executive Bob Iger also called out one of the best quarters in the history of our studio. Then they talk a little bit about Disney Plus. Another positive for Disney investors was the company's continued progress on the streaming profitability in the prior quarter. Disney's combined direct-to-consumer streaming business logged $47 million in operating income, which brought the category to profitability a quarter earlier than expected. This time around, Disney saw the category's operating income grow to $321 million. All right. In case you forgot, it was not that long ago that it wasn't looking great for Disney on many fronts, right? And in just 2 years, the narrative of Disney has changed. I want to remind everybody about something, all right? As we go over and take a look at the stock market of Disney. Now, look, Bob Chapek took over Disney in February of 2020, okay? That's right about here is where he took over. And at that time, it was worth about $141 a share. Now, you see this big drop-off? That isn't Bob Chapek's fault.
Unless he created COVID.
Yeah, unless Bob Chapek created COVID. There's the new headline. But that big significant drop there was not Bob Chapek's fault, okay? That was when COVID, because Disneyland had to close on March 14th of 2020. That's right about here. When everybody knew the closing was coming, you saw the big drop, and then Disneyland was closing. Bob Chapek, the pandemic, that wasn't his fault. You can't blame him for that drop-off. Well, Disneyland opened back up again right around May 1st of 2021. That's where you get this big peak here, right, in the stock price. Now, the stock price here on the first week of Disneyland being able to reopen, we were in pandemic recovery mode. You can't blame Bob Chapek for the big drop-off. You can't credit Bob Chapek for the parks being able to reopen again. But so let's say that's his starting point. That March 8th, 2021, the shares of Disney were worth $201 a share. $201 per share. Bob Chapek was then fired around November, where we get here, right around November 16th, 17th. Might have been November 20th, but at any rate. So right before they fired Bob Chapek, remember when the parks opened back up, stock prices were $201 a share. Mm-hmm. Right before they fired Bob Chapek, the text might be too small for you to see. The shares were $93. In 2 years, Bob Chapek oversaw the value of Disney drop by more than half. In just 2 years, from the reopening of Disney parks to the couple of days before they fired him, the stock value and the value of the company of Disney dropped by more than half, down to $93 a share. Now, if we go back to this chart, you see then it kind of flatlines, right? That's Bob Iger came back in, kind of steadied the ship. Everything kind of went flatline, and we went from $93 down up to $108. Okay, so now they've got things turned around. They've got biggest streaming profitability that they've ever had. They have the number 1 and number 2 box office movies of the year. They're having what Bob Iger's calling one of the best quarters in the history of Disney. So while they may not be far ahead towards their destination, the ship has been turned around. So the question is, what were the main things that Disney has done, that Bob Iger has done, to bring about this stabilization, stopping that incredible free fall of value in the company, and actually start to make things profitable again? I want to propose 3 things that he did. The first thing he did, and it's very connected to the second, but it was a separate thing, is he reorganized the leadership of the company again. You guys will remember that one of the first things Bob Chapek did when he came in, and you remember, I was all for Bob Chapek when they hired him. The part where I started to go, ruh-roh, was when he did that organizational reshuffle where he created new layers of middle management. Mm-hmm. Remember that? And he put a banker in charge of that to oversee creative endeavors and all that kind of bureaucracy created. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's episode, Miracle Made. Guys, it's hot outside and your nighttime bedroom temperature has a huge impact on your sleep quality. So if you wake up too hot or too cold, I highly recommend you check out Miracle Made's bed sheets. Miracle Made sheets are inspired by NASA and use silver-infused fabrics that are temperature regulating so you can sleep at the perfect temperature all night long. There are just so many things that make these sheets so fantastic. We already mentioned the self-cooling properties for better quality sleep, but they're also self-cleaning. These sheets are infused with silver that prevent up to 99.7% of bacterial growth, leaving them to stay cleaner and fresh 3 times longer than other sheets. No more gross odors. So go to trymiracle.com/Campea. That's TRYMIRACLE.com/Campea to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our promo code Campea at checkout, you'll get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. So upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/Campea and use the code Campea to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/Campea to treat yourself. Thank you, Miracle Made, for sponsoring this episode. One of the very first things Bob Iger did when he came in is he dismantled all that. He said, you're not going to have a healthy company, you're not going to have a healthy body unless you got a healthy blood flow. And he said there were just too many things impeding healthy blood flow. And so he reorganized the company again. That was step 1. Step 2, on the creative front, he re-empowered the creators. One of the main things, one of the biggest mistakes that Bob Chapek did was he alienated the creators. In that middle layer of management, he literally stripped away the authority of the studio heads to decide what projects they were going to do and where those projects would go. Kevin Feige used to be in charge of deciding what projects we're going to make, and then is this project going to be for Disney Plus? Is this project going to be for theatrical? All that kind of stuff. Bob Chapek literally stripped all that away. And so, besides doing the proper reorganization, Bob Iger came back in and reinvested the authority back into the hands of creatives. Now, these are not things you see the results of overnight. It takes years. We've always talked about that. But here we are 2 years in, and we're starting to see. I remember Ryan Reynolds was asked, I read this, about what fundamental changes happened in the development of Deadpool when Bob Chapek was out and Bob Iger was in. And he kind of deflected the question. He says, answers to those types of questions are above my pay grade. You could tell he was just being Canadian nice. But regardless, that was the second thing he did. The third thing he did was re-implement the philosophy of spend money on the things that improve your product. We've talked a lot on the show because one of the biggest signifying things that represents the era that Bob Chapek was running Disney was when one Marvel executive said that the mandate from the top, which is Bob Chapek, was create as much as you can, as fast as you can. Create as much as you can, as fast as you can. And we saw what the results of that was. We also saw what his philosophy towards Disney Plus was. Is just take things and throw them on Disney Plus, right? The third thing that Bob Iger did here was he reprioritized the mission of Disney Plus. Because not only did he then tell guys like Kevin Feige, no, it's okay, go back to the drawing board with Daredevil. If Daredevil is not turning out the way you want it, Kevin, go back to the drawing board with it, do reshoots. You're not liking the way Captain America 4 is coming together? Listen, you're in charge now, Kevin. You want to go back and do that? You go back and do that. We are no longer going to be as fast as you can, as much as you can, out the door as quick as you can. That's no longer going to be our philosophy. Because I got to tell you what, Deadpool and Wolverine just came out on Disney Plus 2 days ago. And it's blowing up on there. That was about 4 months after it opened in theaters. If Bob Chapek was still there, Deadpool and Wolverine would have been on Disney Plus probably 40 days after it opened in theaters. But you saw the reprioritization of getting back to the philosophy of what Disney Plus is going to be. They want to put their money into things that will make the product better, not into just creating more product. And that was one of the first things Bob Iger said when he came out. He said, look, we've got to reprioritize. Remember this? We talked about this on the show when he said to the investors, we have to reprioritize quality over quantity. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, any business, you need a little bit of both. You need quantity, you need quality, but he said just for 2 years, the mandate was too much in quantity. We need to get back into emphasizing quality.
And it was blatant. Audiences were complaining about that. Mm-hmm. At first, we were like, wow, this is going to be so cool. I don't know how they're going to pull it off, but to get all this stuff, we're so fortunate. And then we got it. And it was just like, oh, this is really written poor, or this is executed poorly, or wow, they rushed this.
Yeah, so. And what has been the results? The results were a 2-year period that Disney lost half its value to immediately steadying out and now getting back to its growth. Again, the ship is not at its destination yet, but the ship has been turned around in just 2 years. This is going to be really important now for the board of Disney that are already underway in their search for a new CEO, because Bob Iger is retiring again at the end of 2026. They have to make damn sure this time that they don't make the same mistakes that they did last time. Mm-hmm. That they get in a CEO who shares the collective vision of what is making Disney successful and not try to reinvent the wheel. Yes, a CEO that is visionary. Yes, a CEO that will come in with some new ideas, but a CEO that is going to hold to the core principles that have made them successful. And then there's a lot of room for creativity around that. And I think seeing just the results and the value of the company and all that kind of stuff has worked very well. I see some people in the live chat, Feige is CEO? Feige doesn't know the first thing about running an international conglomerate company. Kevin Feige, who I love, would be a horrible choice. What does he know about running theme parks?
Oh, Kathleen Kennedy.
Kathleen Kennedy, right? By the way, that's the one thing in all this. Bob? Uncle Iger? Big Papa Pump?
Come on.
What pictures of you in compromising positions does Kathleen Kennedy have on you?
He'll never tell.
Because why on earth, like in the midst of all these things he's done to correct the ship, why is Kathleen Kennedy still there? Why is she still there? It wasn't even his hire. It was George Lucas's hire. So it's not even like there's an ego thing there. He didn't hire Kathleen Kennedy. Why is Kathleen Kennedy still there? That's the one last thing he's got to fix. That's the one leaky spot on the boat he still has to plug. It's the Kathleen Kennedy leak.
Was she even at D23?
No.
Yeah, that was the thing because we were speculating about that.
Well, you know what? I take that back. I think I heard she was at D23.
No, but
she wasn't part of the major presentations in the at the Pond at the Anaheim Conventions. What's the name of the arena? Is it still called the Pond? Honda Center. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
I don't think she was a part of that presentation. But at any rate, when you actually sit down, everybody likes to talk about what they think is going well, but when you actually sit down and look at the numbers and you actually look at what has actually transpired and happening. Listen, I've given Disney a lot of shit over the last couple of years. If I had a nickel for every time I uttered the phrase fuck Disney on this show in the last 2 years, I would have a lot of money right now. But credit where it's due. They have turned the boat around. Can they continue on? Can they get to the destination? That's yet to be seen, but at least it looks like they're heading in the right direction. Guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? They're coming out now and spouting off one of the most successful quarters in their history. They got the top 2 movies at the box office this year, maybe 3 out of the top 4 by the time it's all said and done. The Disney Plus is now more profitable than ever. What do you make of all this? Can they continue it? And what do you think they need to look for in a new CEO? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, we have a daily podcast called the John Campea Show podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app of choice. Go and subscribe to it today so it'll be there when you need it.